Hey there. I am dying to tell you about the dirtiest secret in photography. Come on.
You can have it.
World famous photographer Chase Jarvis.
It's pure chaos, exactly the way I like it.
So I wanted this video to be a little bit different than the others, and I'm going to give you the answer. I'm going to give you the punchline first here in the first 10 seconds, and you can listen to that punchline and decide if you want to listen to more, or you can go into the next video. The punchline is this, that the dirtiest secret in photography is that the best things in photography come from outside the industry. And it's a secret in my mind because this is a thing that nobody talks about. The reason I call it a dirty secret is because it's somehow, you might think that this is, that I'm sort of denigrating the photography industry. Quite the opposite. Some of my closest friends are in the photography community. It is a tight-knit community, and it's fun to look at one another, work together, be competitive, all that stuff. So it's dirty only in that it's like you're not supposed to talk about anything outside of photography. What I'm trying to do is bring value to this conversation in a way that I don't see other people doing it. Now, yeah, I've been doing those videos for 10 years. There's a lot of other people who are talking about that same stuff, what settings and what it's like to go on location and how I thought about this lighting or that lighting. But this actually, to me, is the differentiator. I've talked a lot about not just being a better photographer, but being different. That's how you get noticed. The reason I started making videos in the first place, there were no behind-the-scenes videos. The term didn't exist, if you can believe it. I literally took that idea from Andy Warhol. What Andy Warhol did in making art is he made art about the process of making art and the art industry. So he had this sort of this self-reflexive cycle going on about basically telling stories about making art for the art world. I literally created 30 Days of Genius with my peers here at Creative Live in hopes of exposing you to things that were outside of photography. There's so many videos about how to operate your camera and how to make money as a photographer, but this series of videos in particular, maybe we can link to that or something right here, this is the perspective of people who are billionaire business people, expert designers, writers, clothing manufacturers. The point is that they come from so many different walks of life. And if you're sitting there at home saying, yeah, but I really just want to watch photography videos, that's fine. But I'm telling you that all the people that you look up to in photography that I know, they all got inspiration from beyond that. A great example, and someone I think you can identify with, is you're familiar with the project Humans of New York, Brandon Stanton. He's the creator of that project. So Brandon, we sat down with him in 30 Days of Genius series, and he is very, very clear that he was proficient with a camera, and he set out to take pictures of people in New York and plot them on a map and make it sort of a visual reference of people who live in New York. But what he realized really, really quickly, and this is when the project he was plugging along, taking great pictures, but when the project really took off is when he started bringing in words. Things, again, outside. He was motivated and inspired by people who were great writers, and he started writing these very, very simple pieces about the people he was taking a photograph of and what happened to that site. Humans in New York took off. And it was the magic of taking something beyond a photograph and putting them together and him figuring that out that made Humans of New York the most influential photography site on the planet. His Facebook page is followed by something, I don't know, like 17 or 20 million people. Another example is the very famous designer named Stefan Sagmeister. So Sagmeister is also a part of this 30 Days of Genius series. And in there we talked about a really interesting concept by a thinker called Edward de Bono. And what de Bono's idea is, and this totally underscores my point here, is that in order to design something from a different perspective, and these are the things, like some of the ways that many of the best designers in the world think, is think of the thing that you're charged with designing. Say it's a tennis shoe. And what if you looked at designing a tennis shoe through the eyes of, say, a 2-liter plastic bottle or something that like soda comes in? It's really through looking at, I want to be inspired by this plastic bottle and apply that to making a shoe That is how some of the most genius, say, shoes have been invented. But that same paradigm can happen across any discipline. It's taking something, being inspired, like I'm charged with making something, and I need to take something that's totally disconnected and looking at that, and what if I could use this as inspiration for making this thing? And I'll give you one other one, and that's Seth Godin. The way Seth talks about, for example, if you don't want to be treated like a commodity, don't act like one. So what is a way of sort of translating that? If you were thinking in a commodified sense, you were like, how can I use my craft to take good pictures and to get paid? And you would look around at your industry and people would say, okay, the average day rate is this much, so I'm gonna charge this much for my work, and I'm going to give people this many pictures for my day rate. And it'd all be very, very conventional. And according to Seth, and this is something that I personally believe in, if you look only in your industry for inspiration, then you're going to be just like everybody else. That's the definition of a commodity. It's a bunch of like items and price is the defining characteristic, and there's usually a race to the bottom. Now, what's an example of thinking outside that to not think like a commodity? That would be to look at the industry standard pricing and trying to flip that on its head. Now, I realize that can be very, very difficult, especially early on, because you don't know where the boundaries are. You can push and like, oh, really, that's I can't charge that much, or I can't really talk about it like that because people look at me like I'm crazy. But it's in those areas that you can, like by pushing on the sides of your industry, you can actually find ways that you push on something, and then on the other side of that thing is an entire different room. This absolutely 100% matches my experience of being successful in the photography industry. Not only that, it mirrors the experience of all these people, and there's so many more. I could give you lots of other examples from Tina Roth Eisenberg or Gabrielle Bernstein, other people who are also in this 30 Days of Genius series. So, I'll wrap this up by saying I just wanted to give you guys a real heartfelt message that has sort of two points to it. One is this really is the dirtiest secret in photography. You can love the photo industry, but take your inspiration, or try taking some inspiration. Again, keeping in mind you got to be good at your craft, but take inspiration from beyond that. Take it from in here, and also look at what's happening in other industries. How are they thinking about something in entrepreneurship, or in restaurants, or in the design world, or so many different things, and how can you bring that into photography? I still absolutely value craft. And if many of you are thinking like, gosh, why is Chase not doing videos about going on exotic shoots? And I still make those. I just make less of them because I've been doing that for 10 years, and I think so many other people are also doing that. You can get a lot of that information out there, a lot of how to operate a camera. I want to still be that for you, but there's also so many other people doing that. I encourage you to check all those folks out. But what I want to do is give you a message that I don't hear out there in the world. Specifically, I don't hear it in the discipline of photography. Photographers, we talk a lot about one another and a lot about our industry and a lot about the gear, and this is just a simple ask and a recommendation that look beyond photography for inspiration. You will find great stuff outside of there, whether it's how to think about your website, your pricing, even how to capture images. Bringing that into your experience as a photographer that is the difference between being, I think, known as a thought leader in the space versus just another photographer. So, signing off, hope this made a little bit of sense to you guys, and thank you so much for paying attention. It's really meaningful that we can sit down and have this sort of heart-to-heart, and thanks for following.
You can have it if you want it. It's gratis, it's for free. There ain't no strings attached, no, there ain't no catch. Take my love, take me. You can have it.